Low quality fans of a high quality Bruins team, welcome back. It's round 2. We're going to do a quick little preview. I know this is going to come out at like 1 p.m. the day of the game, but it was a pretty quick turnaround. And I kind of got wrapped up in just enjoying the Game 7 win. I went to work on this video yesterday and spent like 4 hours just reading comments and rewatching Pasta's goal and rewatching Pasta's goal and rewatching Pasta's goal. So I think that was a really good way to spend my time. And now we're actually going to get this video done and talk about this series a little bit. So I want to I was going to show you my notes. I'm going to open this up here. It's been a minute since I looked at them. Hold on. Okay, hold on. Sorry. You know what? This isn't off to a rough start. Technical difficulties. It's fine. Let's talk about these two teams a little bit. And the first thing I need to mention is, yes, I know the Bruins went 4-0 against the Panthers this year. I'm going to be real honest with you. I don't care. I just don't. I do not care. I don't think it actually says anything about this series, about the way these teams are currently playing. I don't care. I also don't care that the Panthers passed us in the last couple weeks of the season. I don't care. I do care a little bit about, obviously, rematch from last year. The Bruins should definitely have a fire under their buns, but it's a very different team. There's a lot there that people are jumping on, particularly the 4-0 record through the regular season, that just probably doesn't matter, right? I love that you want to hold on to that, and I want to hold on to it. I want to believe. And look, we said it last series. Things need to go right, but should don't mean shit. Toronto, on paper, obviously, the amount of issues that they had through that series, insurmountable for them. But we said it last round. Should don't mean shit. The Toronto Maple Leafs, with a healthy squad, should beat the Boston Bruins. They didn't. That's the way it went. And there's all sorts of things you can point to, but hey, at the end of the day, Boston's still standing, Toronto isn't. Last year, Panthers had damn near everything go right for 3 or 4 games in the playoffs, and the Bruins didn't, and that was the end. We're kind of just hoping for the same thing. So before you say I'm negative or anything like that, the Panthers are favored in this series. I've watched the games. I've looked at the numbers. I spend an exorbitant amount of time watching hockey, as you might guess. The Panthers should be favored. That's okay. That's okay to admit. And the best way to actually find out where everyone's sitting as far as how favored a team is, usually I jump over to the betting odds. And then I'll jump over to analytics. So the first one with the betting odds is, we'll call it one-sided. Now, public money is a part of this, and the public is a bunch of idiots. I should know. I'm part of it. So there's definitely an asterisk to go along with this. But I went through a bunch of different betting sites. And typically, Florida sits about a minus 180 to win the series, which is a pretty heavy favorite for hockey. Obviously, with basketball and football, I feel like you see larger spans. But the 180 is actually the second most favored team in the second round. Edmonton is the most favored, but I think that has more to do with Demko than it does the actual teams. Because I think if Demko's healthy and Vancouver has him in net, I think that's a lot closer of a battle. Also, the McDavid effect on the public money, I'm sure, is pretty large. Either way, a minus 180 is a pretty decent favorite for a hockey team through a series. That being said, public betting isn't always the best way to say what team should be favored. So I like to jump over to analytics sites. And some of you will roll your eyes right away at that. But that's okay, because that's what I do. You don't have to. And Money Puck has the Panthers as the largest favorites in the second round, with almost a 60% chance to win the series, based on their analytics through the year. Dom Lucian over at The Athletic, that number is almost 70% chance to win the series, which is very similar to what the Bruins had as a percentage chance to beat the Panthers last year, ironically. And then Evolving Hockey has them above 70% to win the series, the Panthers to win the series. If we said in the last round that on paper the Leafs should beat the Bruins, well, this is like a Rosetta Stone. We chiseled this into rock that the Panthers should beat the Bruins. But should don't mean shit. Underdogs, baby. This is actually great news for two fan bases, oddly enough. One is Toronto, because if the Bruins get their teeth kicked in, their front office has zero excuses because they would just assume, well, that would have happened to Toronto. So Toronto fans are just unholy on this Panthers bandwagon. They want the Bruins to get smoked, so good for them. But this series should actually be a lot more fun for Bruins fans than the last one. Because the last one, once we went up 3-1, it got real stressful. This series, we're not supposed to win. We can just enjoy watching the hockey and hope for the best. And if we do, elation. And if we lose, we get to shrug our shoulders and be like, this sucks. I hate it. I'm going to cry a little bit. But were we really going to win that series? Then we're going to go over a bunch of reasons why the Panthers are favored. It's hockey. Anything can happen. Just saying that right now. Anything can happen. So let's talk about some of these numbers, shall we? We'll talk about the regular season first, just like we did in the last preview. And I said it in the last one. The regular season numbers aren't my favorite way to project postseason success. It just doesn't make sense to do so because you're taking the accumulation of 6 or 7 months and putting it into a 2-week span. Teams change a lot throughout that time. But for what it's worth, this is kind of an easy one because both these teams were incredibly similar through the year. The goals for per game, Florida was 11th, Boston was 13th. The goals allowed per game, Florida was 2nd, Boston was 5th. Power play percentage, Florida's 8th, Bruins 14th, which is the biggest difference. Penalty kill, Florida 6th, the Bruins 7th. Team save percentage, Florida 2nd, Bruins 3rd. Very similar built teams. Team save percentage might surprise you, but that's according to Natural Stat Trick, and I believe that was 5-on-5 numbers. So the first round gives more separation for how the teams were performing. The Bruins' special teams and defensive numbers were excellent, while Florida's dropped quite a bit. They ranked in the back half of the 16-team squad in a couple of those. But their offense is humming, averaging almost 4 goals a game. Meanwhile, the Bruins really struggled to score through the back half of that series. So even when you take into account how quickly Florida dispatched Tampa and the Bruins squeaking by the Leafs, if you look at the numbers, you would think people would like Boston a little more than the whole super underdog title, especially when you look over at the other net and Bobrovsky's sitting at an .896 save percentage through 5 games of the playoffs. Florida won in 5 games despite that. Bob did have 2 excellent games mixed in there, but he had a couple stinkers. So why are the analytics and the betting sites all in on Florida, right? Well, the advanced analytics through the season play a huge part. During 5-on-5 play, Natural Stat Trick has Florida listed as the 5th best team in the league at expected goals percentage, meaning what they get versus what they give up at 5-on-5. Largely coming from their 3rd-ranked defense, which has seen a dramatic improvement this year. Not only has Bobrovsky been excellent through the regular season, again, his playoff numbers aren't really where you want them, but his regular season play was enough to be considered for a Vezina. But Florida's shot suppression and aggressive board work resulted in an expected goals against per 60 minutes of only 2.32. That's really, really low. That's really low. Which they beat in actual results, allowing only 1.88 goals per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. Under 2 goals a game. Well under 2 goals a game. That's pretty ridiculous. When your 5-on-5 defense is that good, you really don't have to worry about your special teams quite as much. Doesn't matter. Their penalty kill was like 6th in the league. The team doesn't allow anything to go in their net. They're exceptional defensively. The Bruins, on the other hand, ranked 18th in expected goals percentage, a number that they vastly outperformed with a top 5 goals percentage at 5-on-5. So they were actually top 5 in reality. Their expectations were a hell of a lot lower than that, to the point of missing the playoffs lower than that. They also way outperformed their expected goals allowed per 60, which sat at 2.55 goals per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. The actual results were 2.09 goals allowed per game at 5-on-5. Thank the goaltending for that. Now, this is a lot of numbers and a lot of jargon, and some of you guys are like, okay, I get it. Those are incremental differences, everything like that. But what they're telling us is that Florida not only controls play better than the Bruins do, which the Bruins just faced against Toronto. The Panthers will have more offensive zone time. They'll create, for the most part, better chances. They will take entire chunks of the game, and it will be their game. That's a guaranteed in this series, right? We just saw it against Toronto to a horrific extent for a couple games there. Hopefully we avoid that kind of stuff. You know, taking one shot through an entire period on net. Gonna want to avoid stuff like that. But the Panthers are better than Toronto at possessing the puck, at creating chances, and at stifling you whenever you get over to their zone. That's going to be, 5-on-5 play is usually how you dictate playoff success. And the Panthers have been better at it all year. All year. That's not I'm not embarrassing the Bruins by saying that. I'm not dunking on the Bruins by saying that. The Panthers have been one of the best teams in the league all year in that regard. Now, there was one thing that really evened the fields in that first round series against Toronto, which was their defensemen aren't good at breaking the puck out. That was a great equalizer in the large portions of round one because the Bruins, although were being outplayed at 5-on-5 and had to deal with more pressure, they were able to create chances as Toronto failed their breakouts. Florida, a lot better at that. That's actually the scariest thing to me in this series is that Florida is able to do the one thing we really needed Toronto to do to beat them. And they're still good at the 5-on-5 possession and will create. Not to mention the depth on the Panthers outside of the fourth line, which really got exposed in that first round series against Tampa. But the third line is excellent, especially if Bennett is healthy, which he won't be for game one, but he is expected back in that series. So there's a lot of advantages that we had against Toronto that we no longer have against Florida. And Florida gets to still keep the advantages of the 5-on-5 play and the creation and the transition. It's okay to admit that we just don't match up with the Panthers this year. I think that's okay. They're considered a legitimate powerhouse, a cup favorite. The Bruins rely on things going well in a lot of areas, and they still need some luck to punch through. That's fine. That's part of being an underdog. This is a puncher's chance. The kind of series for the Bruins that if you can get them on their heels, build a little momentum, who knows? It's kind of a sit back and just let it go kind of series. I think at the end of the day, it comes down to a couple things for the Bruins. And the first one being goaltending. That's obviously where the Bruins have the biggest advantage. Because even though Bobrovsky is having a great season, regular season, he hasn't been good in the playoffs. Going to need that to continue. But Swayman or Ullmark, whoever is actually going to be playing the majority of games in this one, they have to be elite. And I mean elite. Jeremy Swayman just put up one of the best goaltending series of all time. Literally. Go look at the numbers. It is literally one of the best goaltending performances we have ever seen in a playoff series where that goalie played at least 6 games. I think there's a couple where it was like a 4 or 5 game and the goalie just went crazy. But as for an elongated series, it's one of the best of all time. We kind of need that to continue. That's a little bit, okay, that feels a little bit daunting. But they have to stay elite. If you have a weak goaltending game, it's a loss. If they're weak between the pipes, that's a loss in that game. Guaranteed. No ifs, ands, or buts. The netminders have to be damn near perfect. Scary, but at least we're set up with 2 excellent goaltenders. Right? The special teams, penalty kill, power play have to stay hot. The penalty kill was unbelievable against Toronto, but let's be honest, their power play did a lot of that work for us. Florida's power play wasn't red hot in round 1, but we've seen what Tkachuk and Reinhart can do in that little triangle, and it is dangerous. The power play tailed off at the end of the Toronto series for the Bruins. We'll need at least a few man advantage goals to stay in this one. So it's fine if those aren't ridiculous. The penalty kill has to be really strong, but the power play just has to be present. There has to be a few good power plays mixed in there for this team to really compete. As far as 5-on-5 play goes, there's 2 main points. Breakouts. It was a story last year. It'll be the story this year. The Panthers' transition offense and forecheck are its greatest offensive threats. When they can't carry the puck into the zone and create off the rush, they dump it in, they lay a heavy forecheck. Those are really your two options, right? Problem is they're really good at both of them. So what they're not excelling at is once they retrieve a puck, if they set up and everything, the Bruins are really good at stifling those chances. What you can't allow is having possession in the defensive zone and failing a clearance, because that's when the defense breaks down for the Bruins. If you have the Panthers getting a clean entrance but not able to create off the rush, or they get in on the forecheck, they get the puck and they get set up, the Bruins' stability at least matches that. But if you have full possession and the Bruins are flying their zone and you turn it over, there's just not enough there to keep the puck out of the net. The goaltender has to make a great save. The forecheck's heavy for the Panthers. It's strong and it comes quick. If the Bruins are failing their clearances, then this series will be short. No way around that one. I just mentioned the transition offense. That's the other point. The center group, Zacha, Coyle, Geekie, Frederick at times, they are going to have their hands full. Because Lohrei, Shattenkirk, and Wotherspoon are your slower-footed defensemen. That's obvious. I have a lot of faith in the other three defensemen in their transition defense. But the slower foot speed of Shatty and Spoons and the inexperience of Lohrei with the way he pinches up, that's going to create a lot of odd man rushes, which is how Florida feasts on other teams. They are very good in transition and very good off the rush. Goaltending is there to match that, but the centers have to be ready to back check, and they have to be strong. It's going to be a long series for them in that regard. Shattenkirk, Wotherspoon, really all the defensemen have to be aware of positioning, and they have to be aware of what they're doing on the blue line. It is going to make a huge difference if they are turning the puck over at that blue line. I mean, these are fundamentals, but it's just stuff that the Panthers excel at. I'm worried about the inexperience of Lohrei, because we saw in that Toronto series he was excellent. But he was excellent and the puck kind of went his way a couple times. There are moments where he overpinches. He gets overzealous. That's fine. He's an offensive defenseman. That's going to happen. But he's got to make sure he continues to pick his spots well, something that he's really improved on this year. So I want to give him credit for that. 3 of those 4 points were about defense. The Bruins offense is what it is. We're not suddenly going to start potting 4 goals a game through this series. It's not going to happen. This needs to be a meat and potatoes team for the next 2 weeks. And kind of for as long as they're in it. Forecheck, backcheck, paycheck. That's all it is. Get in the dirty areas, lay the body, capitalize on their opportunities. The way to win in this series isn't flashy. It's not fun. It's not creative or clever. It's dirty. You drag them to your level, muddy up the neutral zone, and beat them at your game. Because as soon as you get into a pissing contest with this team, talent versus talent, gentlemen, you don't have enough talent. That's just what it is. Have to drag them to your level. You have to clutch and grab your way to a win. That's the only way you can do it. Is defense first, capitalize on the chances on the other end. You need to string together some good shifts, don't get me wrong, but when the puck goes the other way, you don't get dejected, you don't get down, you just keep grinding out, creating that bend, don't break kind of atmosphere. And you can build momentum off that. You really can. The team just has to know that that's the plan. Because if the plan is simply, we can outplay these guys. No, you can't. You've got to outthink them. And you've got to capitalize. The Bruins are going to need just a dash of luck. Just a dash of luck. But hey, it's hockey. It's hockey. When it comes to the Panthers, I mean, it's Bobrovsky. That's the key to the series. The Panthers have so much, as I've already said. Sam Bennett's health throws a little wrench into things, but the team in front of Bobrovsky will outchance the Bruins. They will. Simply put. Feels like a guarantee. If Bob falters, this series gets real spicy and the pressure starts to build on the team that should win. If he gives them even average goaltending, then this hill just might be too steep for the Bruins to climb. He is the pivotal part of this series. Look, I know some of you will say that this overview of it all is very negative, and the previews have both been kind of like this. I've watched these teams all year. I've watched the Panthers a lot. They're a really good team, and going into the season, they were considered a cup contender. The Bruins weren't. And after the season ended, especially with the last 3 months of Bruins hockey with some real highs and some real lows, yeah, I think everyone kind of went, yeah, the Panthers are probably the better team. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think I'm dunking on the team by pointing out that Zacha, Coyle, and Geekie in your top 6 will struggle against whichever three you think are the weakest ones in the Panthers' top six. I mean, go look at the roster side by side. It's a substantial difference. It is. Goaltending has to be great. Special teams have to stay strong. And from there, it's just make the right decisions. This can be one hell of a series. Can also be over kind of quick. I'm really relaxed about it. I'm excited to watch the Bruins play. I'm just feeling blessed that we get to watch a second round at this point. And who knows? Maybe we win a game or two, get them on their heels, kind of scare them a little bit. You never know. Should don't mean shit. It's the motto of this playoff run. Should don't mean shit. Go Bees. Go Bees! And once again, it's time to give shout-outs to those who are keeping the lights on for this channel. We gotta shout out our top line tier to start. Let's start with Erica Poli, Colin Nolan, Len Krusevich, The Bugman, Brock Nope, Han Slomo, Chris and Erica, Coach D, The Atomic Lizard, Bradley Johnson, Aaron Adams, Just Aaron, Darren Woodbury, Brett Arney, Pincent, and Nick Zatrullo. You guys and gals are absolute studs. But we can't mention the studs without mentioning the Stallions, our all-star tier, high-quality inspectors, John Kirk, Jacob Pratt, Heil E. Coyote, Adam Ella, Bruin Smash, Tupton D. Tashi, Joel, Abraxion, DeKingery, The Only Newts, A Tasty Snack, Doots42, and Jeremy. I can't say thank you enough. I appreciate all the support. You're absolute legends, stallions, whatever great adjective we can work in here. Thank you, everyone, from the depths of my heart. And go Bees!